Hey, this is Uriah Kennedy from the God and Country podcast. We got a great little show that we're going to do very, very quickly because it's kind of a very important kind of emergency type of a show because we're doing everything possible to go against Prop 4. So we're needing everybody to get out and sign the Prop 4 documents that will get it up on the ballot so we can repeal that proposition. Incredibly important. So we have Melanie Monaster here from the Utah Republican Party who is going to talk to us about why it's so important to get Proposition 4 repealed and what's happening there. And then we want everybody just to get out there and sign it. Be sure to get out there and sign it. So Melanie, kind of tell us what's going on.
Thank you. I appreciate being on the show today. I want to give a little bit of my background and why I'm so passionate about Prop 4. I went to law school, and one of the great things about going to law school is being able to study the U.S. Constitution. The law school that I went to happened to have the two authors of one of the definitive treatises on the United States Constitution as professors. So I studied with them. Their names were John Nowak and Ronald Rotunda. And one thing that happens when you go to law school is for every major subject, there's a book that's called the Horn Book, because that's kind of the definitive law for that area, for that field in the United States law. And so my professors wrote that book about the Constitution, and they really, that was such a great blessing in my life to be educated about the Constitution in that way. So when all this litigation started happening about Prop 4, I got very concerned because, first of all, our federal U.S. Constitution gives the power to make the congressional districts to the state legislatures in all 50 states. There's no deviation from that. Nobody else is given that power. And Utah's Constitution was written consistent with that to give the districting authority to our elected representatives in the state legislature. So when we had Prop 4, that was very concerning because here it was handing some, purportedly, the way that it was written, handed that authority to the redistricting commission created by Prop 4. Now, if you look at the legislature being the people who write the districts, it makes sense because there's proportionality in terms of if the Republicans have a certain percentage of support in the state, that's how many legislators they have, and those are the people who are drawing the maps. So everyone's getting proportional representation. Under Prop 4, the difference is it was going 50-50. So it was disproportionate right out of the gate, and also purporting to give authority to someone who wasn't the legislature, who legally didn't have that. And so, here we are all these years later. We've had a lot of litigation, court decisions on Prop 4. The latest in November, saying that a judge was decided that she was going to choose a map for our congressional districts drawn by a plaintiff in a lawsuit. Now, that plaintiff did not have the authority to choose the map. The judge didn't have that authority. This is an authority that rests in the legislative branch of government because that's the branch that we elect that represents us. It's not in the judicial branch. So this was a judge taking a power that did not belong to her branch of government. So this has been something that I'm really passionate about. We're putting the decision to Utah voters. We need signatures. This is a final week. We got to get this on the ballot for November, and it gives Utah voters the power to decide: do they want Prop 4, or do they want the legislature to get this power back? And I think it's pretty obvious where I stand on this. But we really, this is a priority item. The last day is Saturday, but we need you to sign as soon as possible. Because there's processing time on these booklets now. That's because of some legal changes that happened last session. And we need to get the signatures in, and we need everybody's support. So, we can go into some more discussion if you'd like, or we can...
we just need to make sure that everybody gets out there and signs.
That's right.
It's critical that everybody gets out and signs. We have a special interest group that has come into our state that's funding this. We have an activist judge that has usurped that authority because that authority does not rely in the judicial branch. That is in the legislative branch. And we have this problem across the country where we have activist judges kind of usurping that authority. And the legislatures, not only federally, but also within the state, have got to claw back that power and say, okay, there's 3 equal branches, but there's specific roles within those branches, and you can't go bleeding into everybody else's stuff and doing it for them. We have legislators for a reason. They're elected, and they get up there and they create the laws. They create the districts. It is not the judge's place to create law, to create districts. They can decide whether something is constitutional or not, but that's kind of a yes or no. Yes, it's constitutional. No, it's not. And if they feel it's not, they can kick it back to the legislature to redo the law. They cannot create a new law or a new precedence themselves. They do not have that authority. And that's the problem we're having nowadays, and that's how Prop 4 came into play. And this judge kind of said, well, I don't believe in what all these legislators are doing up in the state of Utah. I'm just going to take that authority myself and basically crown herself with that authority. So it's not a good situation, not a good situation at all. So we need everybody that's listening. Again, like she said, Saturday is the last day to get signatures in. So this is going to be a full court press this week to get everybody out and sign the paperwork to put Prop 4 back on the ballot. And then once it gets on the ballot, we need to repeal Prop 4 for sure. So get yourselves out there, get your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers out there, anybody who is a registered voter, anybody who is a U.S. citizen, and get out there and make sure that they are signing this paperwork. So you've set up several locations where they can go to sign this. So let's kind of go through that. Where can people get out and sign this?
Absolutely. So if Stu Adams is your state senator, if Todd Weiler, Heidi Baldery, Kathleen Reeby, Kirk Cullimore, we have set up locations in all of those areas. Plus, there are locations across the state that volunteers, I mean, these are all volunteer run, by the way. You make sure you get out. We have a website, ufrg.org. And if you go to the calendar, you click on calendar, we're going to be updating that throughout the day as more locations get added. I've got volunteers right now trying to setting up locations in Saratoga Springs and Lehigh. So we're going to get those added on, but we are adding more throughout the day. So please check back if you don't see something close to you. And we are going to continue to add locations. So
that's ufrg.com, right?
.org. Yeah.
So ufrg.org. Again, ufrg.org to find places to sign.
That's right. That's right.
It should be pretty close to you, particularly if you're in Utah, Salt Lake, or here up in Davis or Weber counties, to make sure you get out there and sign. How are we doing down in St. George? Do we need people out there as well?
You know, St. George is one of the reddest counties in our state. So they are doing great down there. I actually just this morning met with a lot of their Republican parties up here at happens to be up at the Capitol today. And they have done great down there. So they, I think, are kind of wrapping up. Up here, we just need a little more. We've got some areas of our state, I think down in Saratoga Springs, where there are a lot of restrictions on different areas that make it harder. And so that's where we're going to focus in.
Are the signatures area specific? Is that why you're targeting specific areas?
They are specific to the Senate district. So it goes by Senate district. And
so you have to have so many signatures per Senate district. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. That's right. And that's why if one of those senators I mentioned is your senator, make sure you get out and sign this week, because those are the priorities.
Again? So again, if you're in these areas, you have to get out and sign, because this is very, very specific. They need a specific number of signatures per district, per area.
That's right. So even though we've got a lot statewide, Stu Adams, Todd Weiler, Kirk Cullimore, Kathleen Reeby, Heidi Baldery, all of those areas, definitely get out and sign this week. Those are priorities.
Those are definite priorities. So again, we need to put the decision-making process back into the legislature, back with our elected officials, not outside special interests that are coming into the state of Utah and trying to disrupt how the House members are figured out nationally. This is going to be huge consequences here at the midterm elections this year, as well as in the 2028 election. I know this is kind of trying to be a referendum against President Trump and what he's trying to do, but we cannot allow that to happen. We already know what Newsom's trying to do out in California and trying to increase his numbers. We cannot lose those seats. So we need to get out there and repeal Prop 4 as quickly as possible. So get out there and sign. Again, drag your neighbors, drag your friends, your coworkers, and make sure everybody's signing the document.
That's right. And, one other thing I'd like to mention is, this model that has been tested on Utah, and they like to test things like that on Utah, is the idea that a judge, that the judicial branch can take a power that belongs to another branch of government. Now, if we don't fight this successfully, this will be replicated in every state, because if they succeed in taking a constitutional power away from the legislative branch and putting it in the judicial branch, it's really an undermining of our constitutional authority. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It's higher than the code. It's higher than legislation passed at the Capitol. If we allow this to go unanswered, it has very serious consequences long-term for our country.
Set a precedent, and they're going to try to do with other things.
That's right.
Not just electing districts or how they set up districts.
That's right. And they'll try to do it in every state.
They'll try to do it with the abortion law, which has been a problem here in the state of Utah, and they'll try to do it with a lot of other areas. They can do it with our guns. There's a lot of things they can start attacking judicially if they take that power from the legislative branch.
That's right. So this is bigger than just the redistricting. It's a bigger issue legally and a bigger precedent that needs to be fought against. To preserve our constitutional rights and our, the authorities that were set up. Our founders obviously were very smart in the way they set this up, saying, if the legislature chooses those districts, then that's reflective of the voters in the state. So this lawsuit taking that power completely away from elected officials, from our chosen representatives, there's a lot of damage and power in that that needs to be answered for.
Yeah, we are a republic, we are a representative government, and we got to keep that authority with the elected officials. Not a judge, not special interest groups. I mean, we don't even know how the special interest group all of a sudden is able to write the maps without any say from anybody else. They just say, this is what it's going to be. We're not elected. Nobody knows who we are. We're just going to do it.
Yeah. So, you can see how absurd that actually sounds in the context of, what the constitutional authorities actually are. It just doesn't make sense. So we did have a lawsuit filed by Burgess Owens, Celeste Malloy, and a number of our county clerks last week. I was able to speak with Celeste about it in Washington County. They had their Lincoln Day on Friday night. It looks like that may actually get decided relatively soon. That is also going to be helpful because our legislature had previously filed an appeal on a state basis, but the one that's been filed by Burgess Owens and Celeste Malloy is a federal lawsuit. So the 3-judge panel to decide that is already being assembled, and we could potentially hear something within 2 to 3 weeks. But independent of that, this signature petition, here's our petition. This is very important, and we want to take a full approach and go to all of the different ways that we can address what's been done here and fight back against it.
Perfect. Great. We're going to get this out. We're going to push it out everywhere on social media. So make sure you also push it out on your social media to help it get out there as well. So not just inviting friends and family and neighbors and coworkers, but push it out on your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your X accounts. Let's make sure this gets out everywhere and we get the signatures that are necessary. Again, Saturday is the last day. So today is the 9th? So yeah, the 9th. So we got 5 days. So by the 15th, we have to have all this done and turned in. So get out there and sign, and we greatly appreciate it from the God and Country Podcast.